Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be going over the set Premiere in Star Wars CCG. I'll be discussing some of the cards that are in the set, the relative print run of the set, as far as published numbers are concerned, how that might relate to other card games such as Magic the Gathering, my personal thoughts on the collectability of this set, and just some random tidbits I might throw in along the way. So yeah. This is the first set released in 1995 by Decipher, Star Wars CCG, known as Premiere Limited. Limited meaning it had the black borders, and, well, there was a limited amount of it printed, as opposed to Unlimited, which was, to my knowledge, printed and released all the way until the loss of the license from Decipher in 2001. Back when I collected in the late 90s, this set actually got kind of difficult to acquire, probably around, I'd say starting around Dagobah release, which would have been, I think, 1997. Yeah, 1997. Packs of this were actually, $5 to $10 probably, which is around what they were up until recently. They're probably creeping towards $10 for each pack, with each booster box containing 36 packs. And each pack contains 4 uncommons at the front, 2 light side and 2 dark side. Contains a rare, and then 10 common cards. It's worth noting that in this set, along with A New Hope, which is the set that came after it, and then Hoth, which was the one after that, so the first 3 sets had different rarity levels for each of the rares, uncommons, and commons. So that means that certain rares were harder to get than other rares, certain uncommons were harder to get than others, and same thing with common cards. Now, as far as the specific cards in this set, so this set was based mostly off of the first Star Wars movie, the original trilogy, A New Hope, so it has cards from that set. Interestingly enough, there were a few cards in the aptly named A New Hope set, which are also from the movie. It's not entirely clear to me how they decided which cards would go in which set, but Premiere has the vast majority of those cards from that movie, with A New Hope kind of being like just an addition, with, in my opinion, kind of random assortment of cards. Most of the other expansions were themed, but A New Hope's the only one that's kind of, well, there's a couple other actually special editions, another one that we'll get into. But yeah, Premiere has a lot of very desirable cards, in my opinion, if you're a collector, because it has what can generally be considered as 8 main character cards, although it depends on what you consider a main character card, but canonically, the 8 main character cards are, well, we'll start with Dark Side. So you have, of course, Darth Vader, who is probably the most desirable card in the set, at least he was back in the day. Back in the 90s, he was a $50 card, which was quite a bit of money back then. And funny enough, with inflation, it might actually still be less expensive than the equivalent price in the 90s, although now Vaders are starting to sell, for Black Border Vaders in good condition, are starting to sell from $50 to $100, and personally I expect that to keep continuing, just because he was the chase card for most of the people that collected in the 90s, although there are technically rarer cards later on, but it's just one of those cards that people will probably gravitate towards naturally because, well, the original chase card in the original set. But we'll get into print numbers and what I think they mean for collectability. So yeah, let's go into all the other mains. So you have Dark Side, you have Vader, and then Grand Moff Tarkin. So of the mains, he might be considered like the weakest because he's only, in the New Hope movie, he's not a humanoid character, so he's not quite as memorable to people who aren't really Star Wars fans. They may not remember Tarkin as much as they remember many of the other characters, or main characters, that I'll be mentioning. So yeah, for Light Side, the characters are much more memorable to an average collector than Tarkin. So you have, of course, Luke Skywalker, main protagonist of the original trilogy. He was traditionally the second most expensive card in Premiere. Nowadays, I'm not sure what exactly Luke Skywalker runs, probably somewhere between $30 to $50, depending on the mintiness. I haven't really seen one go for $50, but if you told me, it really meant one went for $50, I wouldn't be surprised at all. You have, of course, Han Solo, Leia Organa, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the Millennium Falcon, and C-3PO. See, is that rounded out? Yep, that rounds it out. And those cards, it's hard to really tell the price. Up until recently, they were going for about maybe $5 to $10, but prices are going up very quickly, especially for mint condition cards, which in my opinion are extremely undervalued because how much do I just wanted to go on tangents in this video? I guess why not? This is a useful tangent. So I probably touched on this in a previous video, but I don't know how much people are just going to watch this video versus the other ones, so I'll just mention it here. So even though Decipher lost the license to make cards in 2001, the game continued being played by a very enthusiastic group of players all the way up until now, and still ongoing in the year 2021 that I'm making this video. It'll probably still be on this point. So what that means is many of these cards weren't just sitting in collections, they were actually getting played with, especially, when they lost value, and it just became, after Decipher lost the license, the price of everything just fell down very hard. Cards were essentially like, what's that country? Is Nigeria that has the dollars that are worth like, $4 trillion to buy a loaf of bread? Like, they weren't very valuable, so people just played with them. And, they've been around for a while, not really worth very much, so people just aren't treating them like they're worth much because they weren't. And now they kind of are becoming worth more. So it's not one of these things like with modern Pokemon cards where everyone's collecting them and keeping them in pristine mint condition straight out of the pack. Like, everyone's just buying them with the anticipation of selling them in the future when they become worth more money. That may have been the case at one point in time, because a lot of people did suspect that Star Wars CCG would become, well, like many other Star Wars collectibles. But that period kind of came and went, and now it's almost in a feels like it's coming back. It's like a resurgence, but lots of the product is just not there, so that in some ways makes it even more scarce. And if the demand continues to rise with Disney's kind of revitalization of the Star Wars franchise through all these kind of made for, it's not really TV, but Disney Plus series, I suspect that we'll continue to see this resurgence of prices rising. I don't think it's just going to stop when COVID apocalypse, tapers off. I think the world's kind of fundamentally been changed. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think people like cards because they're nice and compact. I like Star Wars, but just, lots of people have these giant collections with a bunch of figures and all that, and I just don't have space for that. But I can do cards. I mean, it's fun, it's small, it's portable. And yeah, I just like them. But yeah, sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent. We'll get back to Premier Set. So yeah, I covered 15 cards packed and rarities of rares, commons, and uncommons with most of the desirable cards in Premier are R1s, rare ones, so that means they're twice as hard to pull as a rare 2. But yeah, there's actually someone on the Star Wars collectible card game, I call it collectible card game, although it's technically customizable card game. Either way, for the message boards, they posted a archive from Decipher's website where they printed how many of the booster boxes were released, and they actually mentioned how many rare sheets were printed. So from that, you can calculate the number of Darth Vaders that were originally unleashed into the world, so to say. So if you were to follow their numbers and believe that they're accurate, there are around 100,000 Darth Vaders Black Border that were originally printed. So if we were to compare that to Magic the Gathering, that is somewhere between the number of unlimited rares that were printed and the revised rares that were printed for Magic the Gathering. It's kind of right in the middle. It's hard because there are different orders of magnitude. So if we're to use this website called icequake.net, there's 18,500 unlimited rares that were printed, and 289,000 revised rares that were printed. So you can't really compare them in linear terms. It would be like a logarithmic relationship, probably. But yeah, it's kind of like in the middle of the order of magnitude there. So it's not really comparable to either one, because there's like 3 revised rares for every 1 Darth Vader printed, and then there's like 5 Darth Vaders for every 1 unlimited rare printed in Magic. So yeah, I think because of that and because of how much the cards have been kind of played with and then how fragile these cards are. So these premier cards are very susceptible to surface wear, right? Like if you try to go on eBay and you try to buy a card that someone says is in mint condition, you're going to have a very hard time finding a card that's, let's say, in PSA 9 equivalent, right? You can find cards if you look hard enough that are in, maybe PSA 7 or 8, but if you find a 9 or a 10, that would be like, I don't even know, like it's very hard to even pull pack fresh cards. Like I think, was it Rudy from Alpha Investments made a video when he opened a lot of packs and said that basically maybe 20% or maybe is it 15 to 20% of pack fresh cards are about PSA 10. I'd say that's an optimistic number for Star Wars CCG. So you might say like, oh, I'm going to buy like, a bunch of these boxes, which right now, gosh, it seems like in the last month they've spiked in price because that's something I didn't mention. Yeah, so right now these boxes are probably about, it's hard to tell. They seem to have made another jump to around 300. I could even believe they're $350 US a piece now. This time last year they were around 150. By the end of the year they kind of went to around 200 to 250, so it seems like they might be making another jump now. But either way, let's say you wanted to shred one of these, right? And you're going to get your Darth Vader out of it. So it's been a while since I did the math, but I think you only have about, it's a 1 in 4. It's either a 1 in 2 or a 1 in 4 chance. I think it's about a 1 in 4 chance of getting a Vader in one of these boxes. On average, you're going to get a little bit more than one main character card per box. Of course, with sealed, financially, you're almost better off leaving it sealed unless you value highly the experience of opening packs. But just from a pure monetary standpoint, probably more likely to be able to sell sealed product even if you were to pull a Vader out. I mean, if you pull a PSA 10 Vader out, I mean, of course, that'd probably be worth it. But, that's just gambling at that point. So yeah, it's a very iconic set. Many people remember this who were collecting in the 90s, even people who moved over to Magic the Gathering. It's kind of one of the sets that started the CCG craze back in the day. As far as other fundamentals like scarcity, I suspect there's probably people sitting on a decent amount of this set out there just because it was the first Star Wars CCG release, so a lot of people pre-ordered a decent amount of it, and I suspect they're still sitting on it. So in terms of absolute rarity, there are rarer sets out there. I don't think it'll be quite as expensive as, say, first edition Pokemon would ever be, even if, let's say, the demand were to be there. For Star Wars, it would have to be in excess of what Pokemon TCG has going on today, which would be absolutely insane for a card game that's been extinct for 20 years just because it was printed in such high quantities. I doubt they printed that much Pokemon First Edition, but I could be wrong. But hey, Pokemon Unlimited was printed in way more higher quantities than this, I suspect, and it was worth like what? Is it worth $20,000 a box now or something crazy like that? $10,000 or $20,000 a box. So, I mean, these are over $10,000 or $20,000 a box. Someday that would be quite something. I mean, it's well within the realm of possibility, just because things are so crazy these days. One never knows. But I do suspect they'll go up in price over time, just because it's a Star Wars collectible, and it actually has what's the word I'm looking for? It's something like biology, natural. Organic, that's the word I'm looking for. Organic scarcity. It wasn't made like Beanie Babies with the idea we're just going to make like 3,000 of this Beanie Baby and that's going to make it scarce. It actually is just scarce due to the natural flow of market forces, bankruptcy of the company, loss of license. Product goes down in price, people just open a whole bunch of it to play with, and now there's just not much of it left, and Star Wars is making a kind of a comeback in pop culture. Which brings me to another video topic. I'll hopefully go into the future of Star Wars CCG as compared to Star Trek TCG, and why, in my opinion, it is that Star Wars CCG is doing so much better. It's funny enough, back in the day, this was kind of an analog to, I don't remember the exact set, but there was a Star Trek there are probably multiple Star Trek sets, but either way, the Star Trek cards were always more valuable than the Pokemon cards, and I always thought that was, I didn't like that because I collected the Pokemon cards, so I felt like, Star Trek was more valuable than the Star Wars, and, I like Star Wars, and, when you're a kid, you're just like, I want to see the big numbers, why don't people like Star Wars, but I think there's fundamental differences beyond just the relative popularity at the moment of why Star Wars has a brighter future. I think in general the franchise has a brighter future, but as far as collectibles, why Star Wars CCG has a brighter future than Star Trek CCG, which the boxes really aren't that expensive. I think the equivalent box, it's like the original set of Star Trek CCG is like $20 or $30. So, an order of magnitude lower in price than the Star Wars CCG boxes, which are continually going up in price. So if you were getting into Star Wars CCG and you were trying to buy a sealed product, I do think a Premier box would be one of the first ones I would go for, just because it is the original set, and that always means something in terms of collecting. Even if it's not the most scarce set, it is the original set. It has a lot of very desirable characters, and a lot of people remember the cards in this set. Unlike some of the later ones, like, say, the Episode 1 sets, which in some ways may be much more scarce, but a lot of people were out of collecting by then. And the prequels, although they made great memes, are just kind of, people don't have as much connection to them, so I might go for this set if you're going for collecting. So Finger's a good place to start. Even though it's a good idea to leave them sealed, it might be one of the very few sets that if you were to open them and grade them, you might be able to make a profit. But again, if that were the case, people would then start buying the boxes with the intention of cracking them, which would then drive the prices of the sealed boxes even further up. So you probably would have been better off just leaving it sealed. Anyhow, thank you for tuning in. I'll try to keep this video series going. So next in the series will be the A New Hope set, the second set in the series of Star Wars CCG. Thanks for tuning in. If you like the content, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, ideally all three, because if you do all three, YouTube really likes that. It's part of the way the algorithm works for like engagement and all that. So if you like the channel and you want it to grow, just do all those things. If not, that's cool too. I'm just trying to make content that I would enjoy. So if you enjoy it, it's great. If not, well, it's fine too. You can let me know that and let me what I could do to give you the content that you are looking for. I anticipate many of the people who would be watching these videos probably have some sort of interest, whether it's their primary or tangential interest in either Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dragon Ball Z or one of these other card games that are maybe sports cards, many of these other card genres that are exploding in general. I suspect many of these people have dabbled in Star Wars CCG, so it's still seen as, it being Star Wars CCG is probably still seen as kind of fringe at the moment. But, with any of these things, it could turn on a moment's notice and become the next big thing. I think it has potential. I don't know if it'll ever reach. I'd be very surprised if it ever reached the levels that Pokemon is reaching right now, just because, there's no modern product to go to your local Target and, camp out and flip online. You can't do pack openings, that'd be very expensive, and you wouldn't have product for very long. I guess my dream is that if there were to be enough interest here, there'd be enough money and we could reboot the game with the Mandalorian set or finish the prequels and sequel sets. Perhaps a pipe dream, maybe more realistic than I would think though. I don't know. Where there's enough money, there's always a way, so maybe we'll get to that promised land, or maybe we can just enjoy it as it is. That'd be interesting. Either way, thanks for listening to the video. Have a great day and stay safe, everyone. Next up, New Hope.